Hey everyone, welcome to Craving Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Now in this video, I'm going to discuss the just published article by The Hollywood Reporter that reveals new details about Melissa Barrera's firing and Jenna Ortega's decision to not return for Scream 7. Plus, they also bring up the potential that a full reboot of the franchise could be in the works. Now, this leads to a lot of questions, and I have a lot to say about these topics. So let's dive in for the latest news on Scream 7. Let's go!
Hey everyone, this is Christopher Landon, the director of Scream 7, and you're watching Craving Something Scary.
So The Hollywood Reporter has just published a new article about Scream 7, and it reveals some new information that we have not previously known. So the headline reads, "It's a scary time for the Scream franchise." The firing of Melissa Barrera and exit of Jenna Ortega begged the question of whether the next Spyglass horror sequel gets delayed further. Now the article goes on to say, on November 21st, it broke that Spyglass had fired Melissa Barrera from the upcoming 7th Scream movie over social media posts that company decision makers characterized as anti-Semitic. Sources note the firing actually came a month earlier, in the early weeks of the Israel-Hamas war, when Barrera had become increasingly vocal. Before her firing, sources say her deal to return as Sam Carpenter, the lead character she introduced in 2022's Scream, had been finalized. Okay, so Hollywood Reporter, very credible source, is stating that their sources have told them that Melissa Barrera was in fact under contract already, which actually makes a lot of sense because remember all the headlines were that Spyglass had fired Melissa. And it was really strange when we got this news the other day that, she was not under contract for Scream 7. We're like, well, how do you fire someone that you don't even have them under contract? Now, it could just be the language that people used, right? But if you want to go really technical, they didn't fire her in that old, perspective. They just wouldn't rehire her again. But in this case, Hollywood Reporter is stating that she had signed, that her deal had been finalized to return in Scream 7. And that actually matches up with a lot of the early rumors. I don't know if you guys remember going way back before the strike. And even when the strike happened, there were a lot of rumors that could come out saying that there was a deal that was already done with Melissa, that she at least had signed on prior to the strike. So it was actually done. And then later on, they came out and said no one had signed. You know how rumors are. But in this particular case, the Hollywood Reporter is stating that their sources say that she had been finalized under contract. So she was definitely already signed. If that is the case, and I tend to believe what's in this article, because it's not just like coming from a leaker online or social media. This is the Hollywood Reporter. So anyway, it makes sense because if that's the case, they did truly fire her. They truly fired her from her contract that she was already locked down for the movie. So that's interesting to point out. But then it goes on and shifts to focus on Jenna Ortega. And we continue to learn new information again. So the article says, on November 22nd came the news that Barrera's on-screen sister, Jenna Ortega, had quietly exited the franchise months earlier. Scheduling issues were cited, but sources say Ortega, who has skyrocketed from child star to supporting player in last year's Scream to the A-list, thanks to her turn in the Netflix series Wednesday, asked for a bigger payday for the 7th installment, commensurate with her status. Unlike Barrera, sources say Ortega had no deal in place. Okay, so this part does match what we had seen in the rumors lately that they were saying that both Melissa and Jenna were not under contract. This is saying no. All the reporters saying no, Melissa was, but Jenna was not. Okay, so there was no deal in place with Jenna Ortega. Now, it continues and says Ortega had been paid in the 6 figures for her previous installments, but her team now wants projects with significant paydays, which I understand that. Makes sense. Something that the Scream franchise is not known for. Sources say she was seeking high 7 figures and anticipated that Spyglass would balk. All right, so here we go, guys. Ortega being paid in the 6 figures for the last 2 movies. So, under $1 million. But now with her success, and I completely support her getting as much money as she possibly can. That's what you should do too. It's what everyone should do. If you have an opportunity, you have leverage. In her case, she's now an A-lister. Things have changed. It's not Scream 5 when she was still relatively unknown. She was still kind of coming up. Definitely not on the A-list for anybody, but she has that talent and she's earned it. So definitely support that. But they're saying now, the sources are telling them that she was seeking high 7s. So she was seeking to get paid in the upper millions of dollars to come back as Tara, which we speculated here, and I speculated on this channel months ago for a long time on live streams and videos, telling you guys my concern about Jenna coming back because of her salary. That, scheduling and salary, those were the 2 big things. Could they afford her, and could she come because of her schedule? Well, according to this article, it was about finances. It's because they did not want to pay Jenna Ortega the higher salary. So no deal was in place, and the higher salary demand was on the table. Now, I just got to say this, guys. I'm telling you right now, the Scream franchise, which is my favorite franchise of all films, all horror films. Scream is I love it. You guys know that. And I know many of you listening to this and watching this love it, genuinely love it as well. But I have to say this, the franchise has been snake bit since day one. Now, there are 2 names that live in infamy, if you will, with the franchise, and that is Harvey and Bob Weinstein from the Dimension days, which is Scream 1 through 4. And remember the Weinsteins, you guys all know it. If you've spent any amount of time on this channel, you know how much I've talked about the Weinsteins and their interference, and how basically with every sequel, they interfered more and more, and to the point where it just got ridiculous. And if it weren't for the brilliance and mastery of Wes Craven, some of those Scream sequels would have been disasters. They just would have. a lesser director would not have been able to handle all of that insanity and chaos behind the scenes and still make a really good movie. So rest in peace, Wes. Miss you, Wes. Wish you were with us. All right. Well, now we know the Weinsteins, Harvey and Bob. Those names are just in infamy with us. But I have a new name for you folks. A new name. This snake-bitten, some even would say cursed or curse, it continues at Spyglass. And I have a name. And I want you to let this name burn into your brain. Just like the Weinsteins are. I want you to let this name burn in your brain. He is the studio executive and head of Spyglass that this article reveals by name, who's responsible for the Neve Campbell salary dispute in Scream 6 and that whole nightmare, and is the reason she did not return for Scream 6 as she had been planned, or they had planned to bring her back. And now he's also the one that was at the front of this Jenna Ortega salary dispute for Scream 7. And his name is Gary Barber. Gary Barber. He is officially the Weinsteins 2.0. Just when we thought, all of us thought, we were out from under the Weinsteins' thumb, we were at the Spyglass, the studio, we're going to have, it's going to be totally going, everything's going to be great, right? Full support and all of this. And no, it's not the case at all. We've got a guy here in Gary Barber, studio executive, head of Spyglass, who is absolutely throwing a wrench in all of this stuff. All right. And let me go ahead and share with you what the article reveals. Okay. So here's what it says more about Gary Barber. It says Spyglass head Gary Barber is known for his shrewd business sense or for being cheap, depending on what side of the table you're on. Multiple sources say, okay, so we already know he's cheap. We saw what happened with Neve Campbell. Now, the studio had already lost Scream stalwart Neve Campbell over a salary dispute for this year's Scream 6, with the actress saying at the time that she couldn't walk on set feeling undervalued. Many predicted that film would fail without its original star, but it ended up being the biggest movie in the franchise since the 96 original. That's actually not 100% correct, because if you look at the revenue or the sales without, and the inflation percentages, it actually has it lower than Scream 2 and 3. So that's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, we'll continuing with the article here. It says, Barber's apparent takeaway is that neither stars nor large salaries are essential. He didn't need Neve. He doesn't need Jenna, says one insider. All right. Well, there you have it. Gary Barber, the studio head at Spyglass, the executive, is the one responsible for these things happening when it comes to Neve and Jenna with salary issues. This is the guy, okay? And assumably with Melissa too, because he is the head of the studio. So that would make sense. So, guys, it's just when I start to think about this and, see the parallels, in some ways it's not exactly the same, but there's parallels to the Weinsteins. It just gets me frustrated. And it really does, because these studio executives they get involved, and if they would just, and again, I understand you can't do everything, right? So I'm not saying that the studio head should just lay down and give everyone what they want. That's not the real world either. So I understand that there's going to be instances where you can't get somebody back, or things will happen, okay? And I totally understand that. But this is different. This is clearly, like it says, he's got a reputation for being cheap. Just, he doesn't want to spend money. Well, unfortunately, it takes money. It takes money to bring in a Neve Campbell, and I don't know what Gail made. I don't know what Courtney Cox made. She got approved, whatever her salary is, but it's just frustrating to see that whole thing about Neve last year was a debacle for the studio. And now we've got this Melissa and Jenny situation. It just is not a good look for Spyglass, not a good look for Gary Barber. And unfortunately, they own the rights to Scream and the TV series. So we're stuck with them, and unless they decide they're going to sell, which I just don't see that happening. They literally just bought the IP 2 or 3 years ago. There's they've only got 2 projects out. So the Hollywood Reporter suggests that a total reboot could be in the works. The article says, while some insiders say the situation is a shambles and very raw, it may not be as dire as it might seem. Scream has always had interchangeable villains, behind the mask, ensemble casts, and certain legacy characters. Another reboot will not fatally stab the franchise. I see what they did there. Christopher Landon remains on board as director, as does James Vanderbilt, who co-wrote the 2 previous installments. Now, this morning, I released a video literally called Kirby Read Time, ? And, this kind of folds in with what it's saying here about how, it's always had certain legacy characters, blah, 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 blah. And so if you haven't seen my video yet from this morning, do check it out. Now, regarding this, I will say a full reboot. Now, when I think of reboot, I'm talking about like no legacy. We're going full reboot. I have mixed feelings. My overwhelming feeling, though, is that it just would not be good to do. I think I'm going to stick with what I've been saying. The best move that the studio could do right now is to bring back Neve Campbell. You're not paying Melissa, you're not paying Jenna. Take some of that salary, add it to what you were going to pay Neve last year, get it up higher, get her back, give us a legacy Scream 7 featuring Sidney Prescott, and you've got Gail and Kirby, and hopefully Mark and Kate, if you could afford Mark, or if they're willing to spend the money, which is a whole nother question. But the point is, a whole reboot, a complete reboot with new characters no one knows. Yeah, you're going to still have people come see the movie, of course. I'll be there. I'll be watching it. And I know probably most of you will as well. But it's risky. It's really risky. That movie could, that's one of those feast or famine deals. You do a whole new cast, unless you're talking about getting well-known cast members, bringing in like a Mia Goth or these type folks that are on that level. Then if you can do that, but then there again, you're gonna have to pay for that. If you're gonna have to pay for that, then just pay for Sidney, pay for Neve, get this, bring back the legacy cast. So that's still what I think they should do. If they announce a reboot, like a full reboot, I'm going to be concerned about it. Very, very concerned and nervous. I do believe in Christopher Landon. I'm glad he's there. I still think he's probably, no doubt, actually not even probably, in my mind, he's no doubt the right guy. He's the right guy to be there to salvage this thing and make this thing come around again and be good. I do believe that. So, and I'm glad he has a hand in the writing. That's going to help. And, real quick, they also notice, in this article, it says James Vanderbilt is on board, but there's no mention of Guy Busick, which is very interesting. I wonder if Guy is gone and it's just James writing the movie. That's something to pay attention to as well. So, and I know Christopher Landon said he's it's critical to him that he has input on the story and the script. So even if it's uncredited. So I know Landon is going to be looking at this script. He's going to have a say in what happens, which is great. But where's Guy Busick? Interesting. Something we'll have to pay attention to and watch as things continue to develop. But guys, listen, this video I know is a little bit long. I'm going to leave it here for now. There's a lot of here to think about and absorb. And I want to know exactly that. What do you guys think about this new information regarding Melissa and Jenna, number one, and then the possibility of a full reboot for Scream 7 versus a legacy cast member driven film? So start leaving your thoughts, ideas, and any theories on how you think the story could go in Scream 7 now in the comments section below so we can discuss it together. Remember, use your voice, speak it out, be heard, type a comment, let me know what you're thinking. All right, we'll go from there. Well, guys, that's all for this update, but I'll be back soon with more Scream and other horror movie content. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Craving Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Thanks for watching.